We are about to see in Kenya the fruits, actually the initial fruits, of the hard work which Raila Amolo Odinga has been putting in over the last couple of months. And Kenyans will be able to see this very clearly when Parliament resumes from today. Just to be clear, in my opinion, this is not the end game of what Raila has been doing. No. But I also believe that this was part of the plan, a small part of the plan, behind the very aggressive strengthening of the Azimio parties, political parties. But I'm going to come back to that in a bit. But first, I cannot avoid commenting about how the second month of the year 2024 is shaping up. And I'm afraid for the nation called Kenya going forward, it is a very bad omen. I'm of course talking about the many transitions in the first few days of the month called February of prominent, famous, well-known Kenyans. For example, there has been the passing on of former Assistant Inspector General of the Kenya Police, retired, Zachary King'ori Mwangi. Now, the late Bwana King'ori, in his lifetime, achieved many firsts and distinctions. But there are two that caught my eye and really stand out for me for personal reasons. One is the achievement of being in charge of a province, a provincial police boss at a very young age, 37. And the other one is being the only police boss in the history of Kenya who has not only been targeted for assassination, but has escaped that assassination attempt. This is what the press has told us. But actually, I happen to know of another police officer who managed to head a province in the early 30s, younger than King'ori. And this happened in the 60s. And the province in question was Western. The same police officer whom I know very well was also the target of assassinations many times. It is only that Almighty God refused. Otherwise, wangeenda. Indeed, in the attempt that was closest to being successful, somebody put poison in their tea in the office, and not at a social place, but at police headquarters, Nairobi area. But very fortunately for them, as the poison kicked in and they collapsed on the wheel of the vehicle which was still running, within the compound of his residence, very fortunate for them, there was a medic in the house at the time. And the major hospital where that medic worked was only 2 minutes away from that residence. That police officer was of course my late dad and political lecturer. But my point is, in our country, when you try to go against the grain, when you try to do the right thing, when you try to change things, you will always end up in a lot of trouble. And this is why, despite anything else the late Zachary King'ori Mwangi may have been guilty of doing, every patriotic Kenyan fighting for a better Kenya has to remove their hearts in respect for the memory of the late Zachary King'ori Mwangi. Another prominent Kenyan who has left the space of the living in this month of February is Kelvin Kiptum, at the very tender age of only 2024. Oh boy. And even sadder is that this only son of his parents, the dad suspects foul play. Foul play in the road accident. Final correction. Final correction. Now in those days, I used to stay in the Ruaraka region, very briefly. Even the way the accident happened was more than a bit unusual, because the vehicle hit a tree, not with the front of the car, but with the roof. The top of the car is what hit the tree after the vehicle lost control, which raises many questions. Because one of the ways this can happen is a vehicle which is traveling at high speed being hit from the back. Very strange February this is turning out to be. Anyway, an overview of what is happening in Kenya currently by somebody trying to look at it deeply will tell you immediately that we are a country that focuses on the wrong priorities. We always do the wrong things which you should not do. We always do the wrong things at the wrong time. And that is clearly the story of our politics and governance at the moment. In this life, when you do your things like that, there can only be one ending to it all. Disaster. You will definitely not be successful, etc., etc. Immediately the Ruto administration took over, their very first order of business was to completely cripple the IEBC, the electoral body, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. They hounded 3 commissioners out of office. And they were doing this after a very contested presidential election result. Hiyo ulisikia wapi? Now, whichever side of the political divide you belong to, you need to answer a very simple question. When you cripple the IEBC, what are you really doing? You're taking away the constitutional right of being represented of Kenyans, because by-elections cannot be held. Electoral offices that inevitably fall vacant cannot be filled. And this administration has appointed some elected people into office, meaning that those elected offices fall vacant. Now, to me, that is the worst kind of rigging you can do in an electoral system. Tena deliberately. Very deliberately. And the High Court recently ordered that the IEBC commissioners be appointed immediately and make this key electoral body functional once again. Imagine it needed a court order. That is how responsible our elected officials and our government is. That should be very clear. And so as Parliament resumes sitting, this is one of the thorny issues that will be up for debate and determination. Now, we all know what has been happening in Parliament before, but mark my words, this time round, it will not be business as usual. Just wait and see. Up for debate and determination in this session will also be the controversial Affordable Housing Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2023. Now, there are not many hot political potatoes you can get in Kenya today that is hotter than this housing bill manenos. There have been illegal evictions, illegal deductions of the housing levy, all open to legal action in the future, in the very near future. And now there's this bill in Parliament to legalize an illegality that has already been going on. And Kenyans don't want this thing. So, as a Kenyan, I can ask the simple question: what is this thing you're discussing in Parliament? Kenyans don't want it. There are only a handful of people who want it. So can a handful of people hold the entire country at ransom? Well, that seems to be what is happening at the moment. And again, the debate of that bill will be super fascinating, including also the public participation, which is a requirement, and I repeat myself, a requirement of our Constitution. If you try and pass a bill quickly, as we have clearly seen has been happening in the past, and there's no public participation, or the public participation is dodgy, sly, etc., then that thing, whatever thing you're trying to pass, can be quickly quashed because it is unconstitutional. Nakwambia, the headaches, the mountains, the obstacles Ruto is facing going forward, I would not wish on my worst enemy. And I'm very serious. Lakini ni kitu ya kujiletea. Yeah, it is a problem you yourself has caused. In fact, not even caused. You yourself has triggered, engineered, watered, etc., and now it is bearing fruit as a big headache and a big problem for you. Lakini ulijitengenezea wewe mwenyewe, ulijipangia wewe mwenyewe, ulijitengea wewe mwenyewe. Now it is very easy to blame leaders, to blame politicians, to blame others. But maybe we also need to do a little introspection. What about us? What have we done to contribute to our current problem, in fact deep crisis? Some of us promoted the hustler nation emotionally and in a big hurry without knowing what we were doing. And therefore now I can only say to Kenyans, kula ujeuri wenyu. Seriously, we need to understand that everything we do under the sun has consequences. And many times we don't even care to stop and try and analyze where we are and try and become a giraffe, even a short giraffe, and look ahead and see what is coming and prepare ourselves adequately. Because this crisis we are in, we would have easily avoided on August 2022. Very easily. Because the truth is, somebody with zero support cannot rig an election. Yeah, and I know many of you believe otherwise. But let me assure you, somebody who has zero support or close to zero support, it is impossible for them to successfully rig an election. To rig an election anywhere in the world, you need at least a certain amount of support. And if Kenyans had denied the current administration that small support, those 3 million genuine votes they got, then rigging would have been impossible. And that's why I laugh when I hear people say that in 2027 it will be a walk in the park for the Ruto administration. I laugh because they don't understand. but they're sure they understand. I'm telling you, in this world, there is no bigger tragedy than a man who thinks he understands and is so cocky and is so sure of it, but actually does not understand. That usually leads to disaster. And that, by the way, is also the story of the Ruto administration. But we as Kenyans can correct ourselves going forward by realizing the mistakes we have done in the past and being very careful of what we are doing right now, always remembering that it will impact our tomorrow. Upende, usipende. And this is why I'm still highly recommending my mini-series, my docu-series, How to Survive or Even Prosper in a Dead Economy. Because this detailed video and the sets of ebooks will prepare anybody for what is coming. And I'm telling you, what is coming for sure. Even if we change the government yesterday, it is already too late. Tuko katika hiyo mteremko, and it is unavoidable. We can't stop ourselves. We can't stop what is coming. Now, our last special offer on this ended on Sunday. And one would understand the complaints of those who missed it. Saying, Kumekucha, some of us don't operate on weekends. This was so unfair. This should have been on a weekday. But it will also not be fair on those who took the trouble to beat the deadline, for that offer to be extended. However, I have done the next best thing. In this new offer that expires on Tuesday at midnight, strictly, you only need Kenya shillings 2,200 to get your hands on this very valuable, necessary information for all of us. So please take full advantage of it. It is not too far off from the Sunday offer, only slightly higher. So please go for it. Now, in the motherland, there are those people who have been doing the right thing. There are those people who have been giraffes, looking yonder, looking ahead, and taking the right course of action, even when not everybody understands what they're really doing or what they're really up to. I'm of course talking about Azimio and its two major leaders, the chairman and the party leader, retired President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and Raila Amolo Odinga. Please carefully analyze what these two gentlemen have been doing, what they've been up to over the last few weeks. Because some of the results of what they've been doing are about to explode before our very eyes. The very aggressive party recruitment in all Azimio affiliated parties has puzzled many, especially because 2027 is very far away, and we know that party recruitment usually happens very shortly before a general election. Now, one of the things that massive party recruitments do is to mobilize the masses to think of their current leaders in parliament. Please flash back to past general elections. Immediately party recruitment starts, incumbent leaders who have not performed are immediately plunged into very serious pressure. And we have seen this pressure play out with a lot of party hopping. People join other parties. People hop from this party to another party. This is the time when it usually happens, during the party recruitment drive, period. Shortly before a general election. But this time it is happening when a general election is very, very far away, especially politically, not even counting the many, many months. So, has this put a lot of pressure on the currently elected leaders? Oh yes. Because it places focus on the representative of that region where party recruitment is taking place. And now you can easily understand and link the planned tour of the Mount Kenya region by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and President Ruto, which we are told will be very intensive. Okay? You can understand the timing perfectly. You see, Ruto relies very heavily in Parliament on leaders from that region to pass his bills, to pass his personal wishes, and then come to us and tell us wananchi want it, like the housing development levy. That's a good example. And we all know that politicians are survivors. And every politician knows that right now, if they're in the Mount Kenya region and they oppose a government bill, they will become overnight heroes and very popular on the ground in preparation for the future. That is Ruto's problem. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure how these rallies will happen in the Mount Kenya region, because I have been to the Mount Kenya region recently, not even relying on my contacts in the ground. I know how people are talking. I know how people are feeling. Indeed, even those Kenyans who are very far away from Kenya and have never been to the Mount Kenya region in recent times will have seen in clips how these people are reacting to Ruto visits. Like the Nyandarua incident comes to mind, where the president was addressing himself. People are just doing their things, totally ignoring what he was saying or trying to say. Now, this particular reaction was very powerful, and I'll tell you why. When you go somewhere and people boo you or they jeer you, it is very easy for you to blame it on your political opponents. It's Raila who organized these goons to jeer me. It is very easy to say that if you're an UDA. However, when people are not booing you, when the masses, everybody everywhere is going about their ordinary business, totally ignoring you, behaving as if you are not there, that one is very hard to say. It is Raila who organized. In fact, it is impossible. You'll not be able to sell that narrative anywhere. Even if you accompany that narrative with envelopes of money, that one, impossible to sell. And this is why I'm waiting with bated breath to see how these meetings in Mount Kenya will happen. You know, when a president is going somewhere, usually politically what happens is that the area leaders affiliated to the president mobilize the people on the ground. But now, I want to ask, if you're a member of parliament in the Mount Kenya region, and you're not on talking terms with your own constituents, they don't want to see you, how are you going to mobilize them? How? Interesting times ahead, my friends. Very interesting. Let's see how it plays out. Now, very quickly before I go, I feel I need to comment on this Monica Kimani Manenos. Recently, that case was concluded. And I've shared my views extensively on this forum. And not all of you have taken very kindly to my views, which is okay. I'm used to that. Those of you who have been here long enough know what happened to me during Homa ya Mchina. For the first time in my career, people did not only not agree with what I was saying, but some of them started hating me. And so, nimezoea. I'm very used to this. But what I'd like to urge you, those who have still not seen what I'm trying to talk about, what I'd really like to urge you to do is to have an open mind. Because when you have an open mind, you're able to put aside your emotions and to see things you'd otherwise never have seen in 100 years. Because a lot of the information that you need to see is in the public domain. Go and use Google. Google her fiancé. Google the family. etc., etc. But I know most of us are very busy, and those of us who are not busy are kind of lazy to do our own research. Yeah, and so you can expect more info on this topic very shortly. Please allow me to tell you a very brief story. Very early in my journalism career, when I was very young, naive, mjuaji, I knew everything, and I knew I was right, something happened that was a major wake-up call in my career. One morning, a reporter at the Daily Nation came in with a story from where I used to live. There was a major industrial action, a strike, at the then Kenya breweries, at the Roraka factory. A photographer was dispatched immediately, and I went about my business for that day in my efforts to learn more about how to be a journalist. But the next morning when I picked up a copy of the Daily Nation, this was years ago, let nobody use it for propaganda purposes today, this was in the 80s. When I picked up a copy of the newspaper the next morning, I was shocked. That story was nowhere. Much later that week, I learned what had happened. Kenya Breweries then was a major advertiser in the Daily Nation. Masimu zilipigwa, wakubwa wakaongea, and that story was buried. Just like that. The reality is that virtually every media organization has its wakubwa and their personal interests and their personal business interests. Now the reason why I've told you that story is that the other day it dawned on me that I am very lucky here on the Kumekucha channel, because unlike even other channels which have major sponsors and therefore the channel has to lean in a certain direction, some of you people on this channel are the ones who finance me and what I do, and you're the ones who are responsible for making me very independent. I have no business interests. I have no reason to lean on any other side except the side of the long-suffering Kenyan mwananchi. Thanks to you and the very generous support you give me. You know, some very famous journalists whom we all respect are financed by some NGOs, and these NGOs obviously have their interests and their agendas and their reasons for financing these journalists and their news organizations. But then the Kumekucha Chris channel is not financed by any NGO. It is financed by individual Kenyans who want nothing else, have got no other agenda but a better Kenya. Almighty God bless all of you. Yeah, you know yourselves. Yeah, you know I'm talking about you. And of course, when you purchase anything on this channel, you're also contributing towards supporting me to remain completely independent. So having said that, believe me when I say I have no personal interest in the Monica Kimani story except the truth and nothing but the truth. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.